Filibuster. When you woke up this morning, did you purposely say, I'm going to confine myself to a box? Or do you just avoid putting any conscious thought into today? When you're busy going at it, literally or figuratively, do you ever find yourself pausing for a moment to realize what's going on? Or are you just reacting? When you hear the saying, "May I have your attention, please," do you continue as you were, or do you consider the information you're about to receive might actually be valuable? When I was growing up, my mother used to ask me to do things, and sometimes her reasoning was, because I said so. Looking back, I wish perhaps I took the time to pause, think, and consider the ramifications of my choices. Good Tuesday to you. Today is Tuesday, October 4th, 2016, and this is episode number 17 of Pause, Think, Consider. Thanks for tuning in to listen to today's show. For those of you that have downloaded us via iTunes, please go on, give us a rating. Give us your comments. It allows for us to be seen by additional people to find out what you've been able to enjoy by listening to this podcast on a daily basis throughout the week. For today's episode, the topic is on perspective. For more information, you can go to the website at pausethinkconsider.com/all one word perspective. I want to start with a story. And it goes back to my upbringing, in particular with my father. We're in debate season. It is a hotly contested political time right now, not only from the local standpoint, but also from the national perspective for president. And while this isn't a show to discuss or to go into politics or to debate one side or the other, it does relate very much so to the topic of perspective. And with the recent debates, it got me thinking back to the perspective that I currently have and how I've come to that perspective and why I don't believe very many people have the perspective that I have and have the ability to think in the perspective that I do. So with that set up, my father is very into politics. And when I say very into politics, that doesn't mean from the standpoint of he likes a particular candidate. He likes everything politics. He likes the political system, the political culture. And he's very well read. He knows candidates that none of us have even knew existed. But it's because it's something he enjoys. It's something he follows. I'm not entirely sure where he got his love for politics or how he became in love with it. But while I don't share the same passion that my father does for politics, I've come to learn and really appreciate what he did with me growing up. He always had on the TV multiple stations. He never shied away from the financial shows or from the political shows. We're not a religious household. Jewish by birthright, but not from a practicing daily basis, continuing spiritual standpoint. So I'd say politics and finance are more prominent in my household than religion or spirituality. And I can remember with my father, traveling with him in the car, listening to Michael Savage on the radio, and Keith Overman, post-Sports Center days when he started to get into politics, just in the very beginning of his political career. And really enjoying those two different perspectives. Then it started to extend beyond the radio, extend to the TV. And with extending to the TV, that was different channels. It was different stations. I always thought that you just watched the news. You'd watch KGW, News Channel 8. With going over to my grandparents, we would watch the nightly news at 11 o'clock. And that was my perspective. That's what I knew. My grandfather would always have Geraldo Rivera on. Watched him almost religiously. And CNBC on all the time. He's a Korean War veteran and was always watching news about the wars and about politics. Very opinionated individual, and yet never voted. So I didn't really understand, and still don't to this day understand. But what I really appreciated about my father, contrary to what my grandfather did, was the multiple perspectives that he provided me. And I can remember on a nightly basis, the same topic, the exact same topic, the exact same news story being on Fox News versus MSNBC, and the perspective being completely different. On Fox News, perhaps it was a bashing of the Democrats, a bashing of a particular candidate, versus on MSNBC being very pro or very positive. Then CNN having both sides, a little more neutral, probably leaning more towards the left, but much more balance than, say, a Fox News or an MSNBC. But what I appreciate about that, in going through evenings with my father watching TV or listening to the radio and the various political news stations that we would listen to, is it allowed me to see both sides of the story. It allowed me to not necessarily get comfortable with one viewpoint or another, and it allowed me to form my own personal opinion. It allowed me to choose what I wanted to perceive, because it would be very easy to pick one side or the other, especially in the case if I was only subjected to one of those two stations. If I was only a Fox News person and that was all that I listened to, it'd be very easy, if that's all I knew, that's what I would believe. Versus if I only listened to MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, that's the only perspective that I would see. And that's where I get into my thoughts and viewpoints and opinions of other individuals. And this whole concept of being able to see both sides of the story, to be able to have a perspective and put yourself in the shoes of either channel, of either individual. Which provides the opportunity, more than anything else, provides the opportunity for you to choose for yourself what you believe in. And it's a very uncommon perspective from what I've come in contact with. To give you an example of recent current events, the debates. The most recent political debate, and it was great to go on to CNN.com. As I said, more neutral. My personal belief, they lean a little bit more left, but more neutral. And going on and reading the opinions. I'll link to it on the website so that you can get the same feel. And it was astonishing, amusing to listen to both sides rate and debate and give their opinions on the success and who was the winner. And of course, it's just normal debating that you're going to announce yourself as the winner. Both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton declaring themselves the winner of the debate. I think one perspective would be that they both were. They both won at different things. We want to crown an overall champion. Maybe there isn't an overall champion. Maybe each one at a different side than the other. Yet I find it interesting that, as an example, where Donald Trump and his arguments and interrupting, I think it was 26 times, 26 total times that he interrupted Hillary Clinton. And how either side could argue that as a pro or as a con. Those in favor of Hillary argued, look, this is Donald being Donald. Not presidential material. Unable to control himself. This isn't debating, this is blasphemy. And then the other side being able to argue, well, that just shows that Hillary has no personality. She's just a robot. And yet, I'm able to sit back and see both sides and see truths in both of those. So to get off the politics and to put this in context of anything and being to see both sides, I found personally that when I am incapable of seeing both sides of the story, it is something that I'm very emotional about, very emotionally attached, emotionally bought in. Perhaps I should be emotionally bought in to the voting of our president. But if I'm being transparent with myself, I don't necessarily see the tangible impact. And please don't comment, don't send in emails about how the presidency impacts me or not. That's irrelevant to what we are talking about today. We're talking about seeing both sides of the story. So see both sides. You can see your perspective of how highly relevant, and see my perspective, how it's not relevant. But that ability to take the emotion out of something, to take out the emotion, and it's almost freeing, where you're able to take a step back. It's why so often when asking for a second opinion, we're asking for a quote-unquote outside opinion. It's perceived as beneficial because they're not emotional about it. They're not vested in it. They have no vestment into the decision-making process. So they're clear-minded. They're unbiased, unable to be swayed one way or the other. And I think that's beneficial. And I think as a society, as individuals, and listening today, we need to do a better job, a better collective job, an individual job of being able to see both sides of the story on more issues. We need to be able to see both sides of the story when our kids are doing poorly in school. As a parent, it's almost your civil duty to believe your kid's right and to protect your child and to be the aggressor. No, that couldn't possibly be my kid. Yet I think it's valuable to see from the teacher's perspective, not make any assumptions, and understand that your child may not be the most honest person in that situation, for fear of the ramifications. I'd venture to say that that reaction is a good reaction. They should be disappointed. It shouldn't necessarily be fear, but they should be disappointed, and they should know that the expectations are higher than that. When I hear about parents that go into parent-teacher conferences, and now it is a confrontation between parent and teacher, and how their child couldn't possibly be failing. Impossible. You hear about these parents that do their homework for their kids because they're so concerned about them failing that it makes them look like a failure as a parent. I couldn't even imagine my mother doing my homework for me. Not imagine that for a moment. In fact, my mother was almost on the other side. There was thank God I had good parent-teacher conferences. But if there was ever an issue, oh my goodness. The expectation was there was no issues. That was my, this is how well Jesse's doing moment. This was my shining moment. If there was anything negative, oof, look out. Not good. That would be another example. I'm not necessarily seeing both sides of the story. However, for my mother's sake, if I'm going to speak for her, probably not relevant seeing my side of the story. She didn't necessarily care. Now, there were professors that I had problems with, and eventually in showcasing those problems, that teacher, that professor lost their advantage. But having that other individual that can be able to take the emotion out of it And being able to take that same discipline, that same thought process, and apply it individually. To apply it to decisions and perspectives that are very near and dear to us. So how do we do that? Not everyone had an upbringing in which their parents gave them both sides of the story, where their parents gave them the opportunity to form their own opinions, to have their own perspective. And people are astonished if I'm going to go back to politics, because it's just very real time. There are people on either side that are shocked. How could anyone support Hillary Clinton? In the Pacific Northwest, it's more of a tune of, how could anyone support Donald Trump? And I've had conversations with people within my circle, my family, just baffled. Almost seeking, does that person have a Donald Trump sticker on their bumper? Oh, speed up, honey. I gotta see what this really? That guy is a Donald Trump supporter. And yet, it's hard to blame people. Partially because I can see both sides. And partially because I understand the environment that you're a part of. We've talked about countless times, you are who your circle is. You are who your environment. And if you I grew up in an environment, a very blue-driven household. My mother's perspective being that you always vote for a Democrat, because if you do not, that is essentially voting for a Republican, and Republicans are morons. That's her perspective. There's people that would disagree with her. There's people that would say the exact opposite. You have to vote for red. You have to vote for a Republican because the Democrats are morons. And then you have the people out in complete left field, the Green Party, the Independent, the Libertarians. And those people are just out in left field, cloud. They come from a state where marijuana is legalized, obviously. Yet it's a different perspective. Their upbringing, the information they're exposed to. It's whatever exposure you're given. So we have to put in time. We've talked about time this week and how valuable it is and how to leverage it. And leveraging it in exchange for that return. We've talked about various ways to leverage that time. Doing specific things once a day, once a week, to help change our perspective, to give us a greater imagination, to give us more self-awareness. And it simply comes down to taking the time and having the willingness to take the emotion out of it and just pause and think about the other side. You might not agree with it, but at least do your due diligence and hearing what the other side has to say. It might feel scary. It might be challenging. It might feel like putting on socks that are on fire. And it's unbearable. It's the worst case of athlete's foot you've ever had in your entire life. Yet, I personally believe it's beneficial. You become more well-rounded. Well, I don't want to be well-rounded, Jesse. I believe I'm perfect just the way I am. It's attitudes and perspectives like that that helps breed radical behavior, that helps breed radical viewpoints. Some of those are beneficial. Radical gets this negative connotation to it. There's also the positives from it. Another way of looking at radical would be outside the box. And that's such a cliche word thrown around the business. Oh, think outside the box. Ooh, Uber was created. That's an outside the box idea. Tesla, an outside the box idea. Game changers. Would we consider Elon Musk radical? Is he a radical individual? Steve Jobs, a radical individual? So I think it's valuable and worthwhile with our time to see both sides of the story. Some decisions, you're not afforded the time to see all perspectives. It is a now, and you have to go with your gut, and it's based on your experience and your gut and your intuition. But that gut, that experience, and that intuition is built based on knowledge and experience. And if all the experience you have is one particular way, one particular framework, then how the hell are you ever going to consider the other side or the alternative? How will you ever be able to vet and know if the alternative is viable or not? It's breaking free, being able to think critically and independently. That is what is going to enable you as an individual to progress at a more rapid rate than somebody that is short-sighted. Initially, perception-wise, that individual may be ahead of you. They've gone all in on one perspective, and that's it. Nothing else. There's people that are able. They are able to be successful. However, it is the individuals that are able to see both sides and yet still pursue the right direction for themselves that I believe have the sustaining power to be successful. You're not looking for the flash in the pan. You're not looking to climb Mount Everest in a day. You're looking for sustainability. That can be quickly obtained, but you want to sustain that. And that comes with having a perspective on both sides of the argument, being able to take that emotion out of it. You have to practice that. You have to practice it in having both sides and being able to see both perspectives for mundane tasks. Like, if you're the type of person that always gets the same type of toothpaste, I'm a Crest person. That's all I know. Why would I ever try Tom's? This natural BS. We can talk about that for another program. The organic, natural movement. Oh, that's BS. Why would I ever try that? Well, if you never try it, how do you know you're not? Oh, I know I would. Number one, you've already gone with a preconceived notion. So even if you did try it, in doing us a quote-unquote favor of trying it, you've already made your decision up without even trying it. So you haven't taken the emotion out of it. But then you can't actually speak from the other side. That's like saying, I don't like this brand, and yet never come in contact with any of their products. I can say I'm not a fan of eggplant because I've eaten it and I don't enjoy it. I don't like the texture. I don't like the flavor. But to say I don't like avocados, having never tried it, or that's not to say I love avocados, but that I don't like snails. I've never tried snails before. Would I try it? Absolutely. There might be a way that's made that's absolutely delicious. That might disgust you. But trying and getting experience, outside perspective experience, that allows you to be well-rounded. Another way of looking at it, to be cultured, to be multidimensional, is going to allow you not only in split decision moments to make the best decision possible based on the information you have, but it's going to make your accuracy of making those decisions that much higher, because you have a well-rounded, multidimensional perspective. You're able to see both sides of the story. You're able to take the emotion out of the decision. Because when we're emotional, everything gets clouded. If you haven't seen Mad Max Fury Road, 2015, the remake, I'll put a clip up. But Max has these flashbacks, and it almost, the whole movie, and it's only 2 hours long. It feels like you shot yourself up with adrenaline. And there's different, it's from a cinematography standpoint, it's amazing. Because it's almost like what they do with the lights, and it just feels like it's sped up. And to use a baseball analogy, you're trying to slow things down. No matter what level you go to, it's the same game. And yet, the difference between college to the major leagues is things are just that much faster. Each level you progress from A to AA, AAA, it's faster. And that's the difference. That is why having the experience allows you to process those decisions much more accurately and faster. But that is only accomplished by seeing all perspectives, seeing both sides of the story. Without seeing both sides of the story, how can you accurately say that your perspective is right or wrong? I want to thank you all for listening in today. Please check out the website at pausethinkconsider.com/program. perspective. And again, go on iTunes, give us a rating, give us a comment. And I look forward to talking to you all tomorrow on Pause, Think, Consider.